Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of Noob to Weeb. I am your Weeb Matthew Roe.
And I'm your Noob David Short.
Every 2 weeks, I choose an anime that David hasn't seen, and we watch the first arc.
And I can feel my virginity returning.
This week, the worldwide smash shonen epic My Hero Academia, produced by Studio Bones. The series is written by Yusuke Kuroda and directed by Kenji Nagasaki. Please forgive the dreadful pronunciation.
I will not, and you can't make me.
Oh, I'm fine. So, David, please synopsis for us the first arc.
Alright, well, if you're more Western-oriented like me, the best way to say it is this is Disney's film Sky High. Kind of. Like Japanese and in the future. But for more detailed breakdown.
I can see the future.
In a world where superpowers are called quirks and they are everywhere, our young, plucky, powerless protagonist is trying to become a hero. This first arc has the main kid, Deku, encountering his all-time favorite superhero, All Might, and asking if a little scrub like him could ever be a hero. All Might says no.
And then he says yes.
Yeah, well, only after Deku ends up trying to save the day, and All Might is so moved by his determination that he tells him not only can he be a hero, but All Might's going to give him a copy of his own powers. That's cool, I guess. They train for a bit so that Deku can not only be ready physically for his quirk, but also so they can pass his entrance exams at the prestigious UA Hero School. At the exam, he ends up scoring 0 points for beating any enemies, but he saved another student, so he gets in based off of the pity rescue points. So now Deku is on track to be a fully fledged hero. And that's it. That's the whole
Doodah!
What I've watched.
Jazz hands. Well, and the first thing that I really have to ask, because one thing, even though this series becomes very much about the cast as a whole, you can definitely say that the real protagonist of the series is Deku. He's the one who gives the narration kind of at the beginning in like major points in the arc.
Right.
And we're following his story of becoming one of the greatest heroes of all time, quote unquote. So one thing that stuck out to me initially that I need to ask you about is, what do you think of Deku as a protagonist? Do you think that he, as a character, is embodying what the series right here is trying to get across?
I don't quite know yet as to what the series is trying to get across, because to me it seems...
Well, what do you think it is? Like, because
right.
At least I had an impression when I was first starting this out, so I'd like to know yours.
Based off of what Deku is as the protagonist, I feel like it's one of those, you can overcome your own, like, anybody can work hard and overcome whatever their initial, what they were told they're going to be is. Because the whole first episode is about Deku being like, oh, you're just a normie. You don't know any of this stuff. What was it? They said he had an extra bone in his pinky toe, and that's how...
Well, he didn't even have an extra bone. It was just the regular amount of bones, because the people who have the quirks don't have... They have the 2 bones in their pinky toe are fused together.
Right. So yeah, that's the sort of thing where it's like, okay, you have a physical thing of you will not be able to succeed, and I feel like this entire anime is just going to be like, yeah, well, but with hard work and determination, and especially the spirit and will and all that, that's enough to make any of your dreams come true.
Speaking from, obviously, because for everybody else, like I've already watched through the majority of My Hero Academia. I've never actually read the manga itself.
Like a dork.
But I know that the first 4 episodes of the series is the first 4 chapters in the manga and all that jazz. So I know that the perspective of the series definitely changes quite a bit after the entrance exam arc. Because this obviously is the intro arc. It establishes our main character, our main goal for the main character. But everybody's reason for being at UA is very different and very unique. So I'd be interested to see if people would be more inclined to have us talk about this series going forward.
Oh yeah,
To see how you react to different changes within different arcs, because everybody really becomes like a main character later on. But
we haven't been introduced to that many characters as it stands now, especially like the first 2 episodes. The only person you were really introduced to, besides the other heroes that were already like. Already heroes. The established,
the famous ones.
The one lady who just showed up, whose biggest weakness is that she can't fit on a 2-lane road.
Yeah, Mountain Lady. Let's kind of breach into that.
What I wanted to say real quick though was that the only people that we've really seen were in that most recent episode, that last one, the 4th episode, and that was only the one girl he rescued and the one guy who seems like the really smart one, like the guy who pushes his glasses up and then they have a sheen on him, because that's just how cool and smart he is.
That's the thing too. There are so many characters in this first opening arc. Do you feel that as a whole that you were able to at least, I would say, have a memory of everybody, or are there specific characters that stick out in your mind far more than others, not counting Deku and All Might, of course?
Right. I mean, I would say that I would probably have about 6 people in my mind right now. That'd be Deku, All Might, his rival, Bakugan,
Bakugo.
Whatever. Yeah, that one. I'm saying he's in my mind. I'm not saying his name is well known. The girl that he rescued, the smart guy that I just said, and she doesn't feel like she's going to be playing a much major role later on, but I am still aware of the mother, of Deku's mother. I feel like that's just something that's going to be dropped.
I think that's her name.
Idea. But I feel like she's going to be dropped because it just seems as more of a, childhood sort of character. But if she does stick around, she's at least in my head still. So, but that's all the established heroes besides them, the people who were judging the exams, none of those people have stuck in my head. So if they're at all relevant, they need to either reintroduce them to me or I need to watch that episode again.
See, that's fair, because, I mean, honestly, one thing that you do encounter a lot when going through the series is in every episode, you're going to get a rundown of everybody's name, because there are so many characters and so many important characters. Yeah. Like, if you're binging the show, it gets a little irritating because, like, oh yeah, okay, I know exactly who these people are. But I'm like, if you're thinking about the actual broadcasting where it's going week to week, I'm like, yeah, no, you're going to need that because there are so many characters and they all have a purpose in the story. Is there any specific moment within the first 4 episodes that you really stuck out in your mind? Like, there's one moment for me that I'll definitely go through. But
right.
What about you?
Well, we discussed this before recording, was that I ended up watching the dub, whereas you had the sub.
I watched the dub too.
You watched the dub too?
Yeah, okay, just to prep to make sure I had a way to discuss this with you.
The one thing that, I mean, not as a moment that really stuck out to me, but it's like one of the first notes I have written down was when they were taking pictures of the mountain lady.
Yeah.
It was a bunch of guys like just all lined up with cameras.
Oh yeah, the paparazzi.
Just going money shot, money shot, money shot. And like I was just like, oh, that right there set the tone for me of just like, oh, that's what we're doing. We're doing that sort of like that comedy, and I was like, yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. I wasn't saying that it was bad, but it was
the subtitle translation for that line is different in the dubbed version.
Right, and those the wording sort of things I'd imagine are different between things, but in the moments, I'm sure, are generally the same. So in the way the moments stick out, I would say pretty much the ending of every episode stuck out as a moment. Like the moment where he confronts All Might, being like, can I ever really be a hero? The moment where All Might tells him, yes, you can.
Yeah. Young man, you too can become a hero.
All of the endings are pretty much cliffhangers, but they're such solid moments in their own right that like they just stick. Like when I'm recounting the plot, almost every little bit that I said there was the ending of each episode.
Yeah.
It was Deku saving the day, All Might saying he can be a hero. All this stuff was like from the climactic moments of each episode.
I think every episode ends with Midoriya crying.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Like
I think I'm kind of right with him personally, because like the moment where All Might tells him like, yeah, you could be a hero, and like Deku's just like doubled over, like his chest is in pain, and he's just trying to hold back the tears. I'm like, oh, the feels in this are a little too close to reality. I'm getting a little too involved.
I just imagine there's a SpongeBob episode where his shoes are untied and he comes across the Flying Dutchman, and he's like, he has this big emotional thing as soon as he finds out the Flying Dutchman can tie shoes. And I just imagine All Might picking up Deku and doing the same thing. Just, you're going to have to not do that.
You're going to have to stop that right now.
Yeah, that's just a little, nope. But no,
well,
it's overall with the moments, it's especially those emotional like cliffhangers. The first one definitely hit hardest, I think, because it's just him, or sorry, not the first one. It's the end of the second episode, but those two basically flow all in one episode. But the end of the second episode, where he, like you said, he doubled over, he's crying and stuff like that. You can genuinely feel like, yeah, this is all this kid wants, and it's being offered to him.
Yeah, it's just like, because he was told throughout his entire life.
Well, not even his entire life. He was told after those were already his dreams that he was never going to do it.
And then, like, because everyone just assumed that he was he just was a late bloomer with his quirk, and then when it was finally discovered that he was quirkless, all of what he wanted to be was destroyed. And you just, especially in that one moment where after the doctor tells him that, and he's sitting in the office watching the All Might video, you just see him turn slowly around, and you just see he's broken. His mind is literally broken behind there.
He's keeping the All Might smile on, but he's just streaming tears.
Yeah, and I just remember looking at that. I'm like, Jesus Christ! Like, I can't. It was a little too much for me, because when I was younger, I constantly was like telling my teachers and stuff like that. I was like, oh, I want to be in film. Oh, I want to be a writer. Oh, I want to do this. And almost all of them were always like, yeah, you should probably not do that. You should probably get something that you probably could, actually do. And so that feeling that having the only hope that you're going for kind of dashed, but at the same time you see how, even though in the back of his mind before he meets All Might, that he's taking all these notes and he's trying to know all this information about the hero world, even though he can't really be a part of it. And even when people are saying, it's like, oh, you should be a police officer, that's a good profession, all that stuff, that's just not enough for him.
Oh, yeah. No.
He's just like, I can't be an everyday hero. I want to be like All Might. And
I'd imagine that it's like, not, I'm totally not like dissing anybody who is this, but like, I'd imagine it's the same sort of thing between like security guard to like police officer sort of thing.
Where it's like, of course, like I'd imagine that like a lot of people equate with what they're doing is absolutely it definitely poses a lot of the same risks, but there are different connotations, different lines of work actually have. It's like the difference between, it's like, oh, I work in the film industry. Oh, it's like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I shoot porn. So like, even though those two are both technically true, they have two different connotations with it. And by the way, for people who are listening in who think I'm shit talking people who shoot porn, you obviously have not read most of my stuff. So I don't badmouth people who do that.
Put it on a side thing. There's I believe it's the CIA. There is a Starbucks in the CIA. So I just imagine one of the Starbucks baristas being like, yeah, I work at the CIA.
I'm a barista at the CIA. Yeah, it's like okay, you're there, but you're not really. It's like
and that's just the same sort of thing between Deku and that, where it's like, yeah, he could be a police officer, but especially in a world where heroes exist like that, nobody's looking at the police officer the way they look at those heroes.
Absolutely not. They're most of the time, from their use, at least in the very beginning here, they're just kind of seen as like the cleanup crew. The heroes come in, they save the day, and then they take the bad people, away. They take the bad guys away, and then they like are crowd control basically.
Yeah,
and even then they have they have heroes that are like crowd control. What was it like? The hero, I think, Backdraft.
Yes.
Like,
I was gonna say Wind Guy.
yeah, so, yeah. Well, he's basically a walking fire hydrant,
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah,
Well, there's also Wind Guy.
I don't know the wind guy. That was
Oh, maybe that was just All Might's punch. Was that just All Might's punch?
All Might did. He did like. He
remember
blew him away
Wind.
with a punch. Yeah.
Yeah.
He I think he did. Shit. It was. I think it was Detroit Smash. I love how. Like, okay, can we talk about the fact that all of All Might's stuff is just based off of American cities?
I've
and
only
stuff,
seen. I
and
think
states.
he's only done 3 so far.
So
I
it was.
think.
He did Detroit Smash, and that defeated. Was it the water villain, the slime villain?
Yeah.
And yeah, we haven't gotten to some of his more crazier ones yet. I mean, they basically all are just supercharged punches. But
one of the few animes I have seen for anybody doing it is One Punch Man. Not season 2 yet. I've seen season 1, and it definitely felt like All Might had that sort of ability.
Yeah,
they never directly go into what his ability is yet, but it definitely felt like he was like, yeah, he's the fight ender. He's just shows up and it's done.
Well, it's kind of when we look at the archetypes that are present in My Hero Acca, is that a lot of this it's kind of like subverting American comics at the same time that it's playing up shonen tropes.
Yeah.
Because All Might very clearly is based off of Superman.
Oh yeah.
And like, it's painfully obvious of that, but and also I don't honestly know if All Might. I don't think they've ever actually determined, or at least not in this part of the show, exactly where All Might is even from.
No, they just say that, like, he's the symbol of peace for the world, pretty much.
I mean, his name is Japanese. It's Toshiniro Yagi.
Spoilers. Fucking jeez.
You already know that.
Oh, did I? Sorry, I missed
I'm pretty sure that was determined in the first chapter, but I could be wrong, and I might be jumping the gun on this. I do love the first season of My Hero Acca to death. I think it's a very tight season. But the first arc especially, I think that the arc itself sets up the characters rather well, at the same time that it sets up the rules of the universe, and it also sets up the stakes that Midoriya has when trying to prove himself during the entrance exams.
Oh yeah.
Do you think that the character dynamics that Midoriya has been set up with I mean, I guess the right way of describing it is the way that he's introduced to his future classmates. Do you think that sets up a good rivalry between him and everybody else, or do you think that it's not quite there yet?
I think that the way that he got in off of the pity points and everything like that, the rescue points, whereas everyone else was going around smashing up the robots, I feel like they're gonna do a thing where it's like, oh, that guy, does he even deserve to be here? He didn't smash a single robot or whatever. But then like the people who saw him like destroy that giant robot, like who can recognize that amount of strength he has, they're gonna be the ones that are just like, hey kid, like, ignore them. We get it. You're here for a reason.
Yeah. The really like book heavy, like really no nonsense character, the one that has the glasses that goes really, really fast.
Yeah, I'm looking for his name on the wiki.
Ida,
here, but
it's Tenya Ida.
Yes, there it is.
Yeah, and he's I love him. I love his character. I love how he is the prototypical greatest student in Japan type idea. Like, I'd imagine that this is what Light would be if he wasn't a sociopath.
But that's pretty much the whole of his character. So
I know. That's why I'm thinking. Like, and that's the thing. Like, it again. Like, as you get further into the show, and of course I'm not going to spoil it, but as you get into the further into the show, you realize why Ida is the way he is. It's not just because he is just an insane student. There's some real interesting motivation behind that.
Yeah, the way that they were setting up each character, like Deku obviously has got his stuff, but when it came down to Bakugo, when it came down to it's listed here as Recovery Girl, so I'm just going to take Recovery Girl.
Oh no, Recovery Girl is the nurse.
Yeah. But I'm just saying each of those characters, they've given enough that, in just that one chapter, you get the gist of kind of who they are. But there's so much extra room for depth for each one of them that from what I hear from you and from everyone else, this is going to explore like everybody in depth.
Yeah, it gets to a point in which that this very much, because it does. Like I said earlier, it starts off with Deku as kind of the main character, but then it really branches off and becomes an ensemble piece where every character's backstory is pretty much explored. Their motivations are explored, but also at the same time, it doesn't necessarily forgive some of the things that happens, but it definitely explains it. Like especially with some of the more explosive moments between Bakugo and Deku. No pun intended there.
Like I genuinely dislike him as a character right now.
Yeah, he's like a piece of shit at the beginning of the show.
Like, he's such an asshole, but, like, I get it. I can see he's, like, the Sasuke to the Naruto sort of thing. I get it.
Let's kind of explore that for a second. It's like, do you think that Bakugo is going to go the way of Sasuke, or do you think that he has more character depth? Because I don't care what anybody says, I still think that Sasuke was a bland as fuck character.
Yeah, that's what you need to, like, when you say the way of Sasuke, do you mean like
because is he just going to be the rival for the sake of rival's sake, or do you think that there's going to be a higher evolution of his character, even though whether or not he changes his perspective or not is not really the point I'm trying to make. It's more like, do you feel that do you feel that his role in the universe is going to play out more than it would be just the typical rival like Goku, Vegeta type thing?
Yeah.
Or do you think it's exactly going to go that way?
I feel like if I were just watching these first 4 episodes, I would say that it's going to go exactly that way. But because of my external knowledge of knowing how much more in depth everyone gets, I feel like he's not going to be the one that's just, he's just a dick.
he is just a dick at the same time that he isn't. So I think that if we ever get to a point that we're going to continue on and talk more about this series, because we really should also get more into the animation and the actual production of it. But I think that some of the characterization later in this season, and especially in season 2, that you're going to hate him at the same time that you're going to love him. It's kind of like Cersei Lannister in Game of Thrones. Like, everything about you I can't stand, but at the same time I get it, and I kind of love it when you're a badass at the same time that you're still a piece of shit. Like, it's a very I have a very conflicted relationship with Bakugo.
And I mean,
but with the first 4 episodes, he's a fucking asshole and I hate him, and he there's no reason for him to bully Deku to the extreme that he does. I think, all right, I want to ask you about this question. This really, I think, is just kind of passed over. It's very obvious that Bakugo bullies the fuck out of Midoriya, but it looks like everybody in his class, including his teacher, just lets it happen.
Yeah. What about it?
I kind of had a problem with that, but at the same time, though, like, I'm trying to think about it in the context of the world, that how he's considered the odd one out because, what was it? I think it was like 80% of the world's population have quirks.
80-20. Yep.
80-20, yeah. It's like, so, but I'm like, 20% is still a sizable chunk of the world's population.
If you imagine the average family being like 2 parents, 3 kids, then one person out of that group is not going to have powers.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's not really how it's represented in the series itself.
Yeah, it seems like it's more of a 2% thing in the series.
Yeah, I mean, we run into plenty of quirkless characters because you have, like, ordinary everyday people, or police officers and stuff like that. But at the same time, though, it looks like a lot of these people are just have minor quirks as opposed to the major ones by the heroes.
Well, I forget what the mom's power was, but I think hers
was like levitating, like, very small objects toward her.
That's the sort of thing where it's like, you can Leviosa whatever you want, but it's still not going to be a monster ender.
See, I also I like to also mention the fact that Deku is also got the Disney parent syndrome. He's got one parent, and we don't mention the other parent.
Well, no, they mentioned the other parent's power during the doctor's visit.
Throwing fire, I think it was. But at the same time, like, we never. I don't remember. I don't think even in the entire first season, I don't think that his dad ever comes up. As a topic. Yeah, I'm more kind of like throwing this out to everybody else too, because I mean, if he does actually talk about him, I'd be interested in doing it, because I don't think we ever get a understanding of who his dad was, why he's gone. Right. I don't know if he's dead. I don't know if he just walked out on them. I'm not exactly sure what the story is. So I think a couple of pieces of Deku's opening, for me anyway, is kind of lacking a little bit of context. I let it kind of slide by because of how fast the first arc is. It's just kind of really all about setting up the major points and then plowing through them as quickly as possible.
Yeah, but also, I mean, from a writing standpoint, you don't want to give away your entire hand.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's the same thing with other characters too. I always forget his name.
You could literally say anything, and I'd be like, "Yep, that's right."
It's the guy with the ice powers who has half his hair is white, the other half is red.
Yep, that's right.
I never fucking remember his name, and it's terrible. And I've seen through the first season.
I've seen his picture before,
now.
so the way I've seen him called is Zuko, Ice Zuko.
Yeah, but it's funny too because he's more like Zuko than you realize. So that's one of the reasons why I'm like he's. I can't say anymore. It's so painful.
Well,
it's so painful.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want us to watch the Quirk Apprehension Test arc, which is the next 3 episodes, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, seriously. So, and I think like the last part I'm going to try to wrap this up is that what did you think of the animation? Mm-hmm. B, what do you think of the voice acting? Because you watched the dub,
yes.
And I've seen both, so I can weigh in on that. But I'd like your opinion, because a lot of people are kind of split on the English dub of My Hero Acca.
Right.
And then the last point I want to talk for you to say is that if we had to give the first arc of this series a rating out of 5 on a scale of 5 stars, what would you give it? So the first thing would be the animation quality and the usage. Because I liked it, but at the same time, though, are there any points that worked for you, or are there any points that really weren't that interesting? What do you think of the style?
When it came down to the animation, like, I thought everything was fine. The one thing that I have a problem with in Japanese animation that I have seen is the pan and scan sort of thing, where it's just like, okay, we've drawn this
still image.
Yeah, we've drawn this frame, and we're just going to move over it while another character is talking, or even the character on screen is talking, so that only the mouth lips have to be animated, the mouth flaps. So this didn't have a whole lot of that. And if it did, it wasn't just like a single frame of like just the mouth flaps moving. It was like his hands moved, his body moved. Like, it was enough to be like, no, they kept animating it. So overall, I enjoyed the anime. The animation. The only problem I ever had was there's the occasional moment where Deku slips into like super nerdy mode, and he's just like
mutter.
It's just like a weird. Like, there was one time where it's just like it was a normal style animation, but just like his mutters just sort of took up the entirety of. Like, it just started moving.
It took up the entirety of the screen.
Yeah, I like that. The one that I didn't like was where it was like a purple background, and he was just like that, and it was just a still frame with just the mutters being moved about, and I was like, see that was just a filling up time for me sort of thing. And I know that style of animation has its place in those sort of comedic moments, but it's not for me.
That's fair.
That's
fair. It's a stylistic choice. I think that usually that is indeed like a money saving technique. Mm-hmm. And I agree that those types of moments, like I've seen a shit ton of anime, and that is a major problem, honestly, that's through a lot of it. And of course, if we went to American comics, there are certain American cartoons, there are certain tropes in American cartoons that are garbage too. Mm-hmm. And I'm right there with you that I think that those moments kind of cheapen the animation. But when you have on the other side of it, the other side of the scale, when the animation gets really fluid and
Yeah.
really all up in your face, especially like when Midoriya uses One for All to destroy the giant robot.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about? Do you think those moments are well executed? Do they think that they really get across like the epic scale that the show was trying to do?
Especially the point where he uses One for All. Like I'd say that and the destruction of the slime monster in episode 2. Like both those moments are just like 100% like, yeah, this is fighting monsters superhero style. This is it. Like it definitely got across. Just I don't know about like the scale of it, because I feel like, especially in anime, there's always the scaling problem of, the next baddie has to be bigger than the last baddie sort of thing. So I don't know if like scale wise, because this doesn't seem like it's going to be that big of scale compared to later down the road. But in just terms of like how epic it is seeing Deku grow from, that kid doubled over on the thing to one training episode to destroying this giant robot. Like, that's like, it's only been 2 episodes, but I feel like we actually had growth, and that's something there.
And I think one of the reasons why that type of extreme accelerated growth works with the first arc of the series is because there's consequences for his actions. So he doesn't just train through this, get the power, and then he's just able to use it willy-nilly like you see a lot of shonen protagonists do. Where it's just like, oh, he's trying to control it and new levels get unlocked as he gets more and more up there. No, he has the power, but he can't control it, so thus it's constantly breaking his limbs. And I find that trade-off is really interesting because it doesn't give our character the Superman aspect. It doesn't like, oh, he just has the powers and he's able to use it, and it's just all about, what is he going to do morally. I'm like, no, he is getting a full he's getting a full education even before he joins the academy.
I mean, there was the just a slightly tangent, the Man of Steel movie. They showed that segment where like he was getting a super hearing in, and he just locked himself in the closet to just try, because he couldn't control it and he couldn't do that. And while as that was kind of the same sort of thing, this one was more of like, he's going out and trying to be a hero and he can't control it. So it's like he skipped the step where he's just like trying to play it safe, and he's like, nope, you're thrown in the fire, now deal.
Yeah, and like that's one thing, that he's not given any real time to adjust. He's literally given the power the morning of his exam.
Yeah, like literally they're talking about like, all right, it should digest by the time you're at the exam. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and should is being the case thing. So like, all right, hopefully this works. So he's never really going in to any of these scenarios with any kind of certainty, and I think that adds more to the drama because. Even with Superman, even at like the earliest points of certain parts of his trials and all that jazz, that he had some basic understanding of how to control some aspects of his powers.
It was only once Superman was fully realized as a character that writers went back and made him, flawed as a child.
Yeah. And I think that Deku has the benefit of having like
we get to see
no time, and he can't even tell people, hey, I just recently acquired this power from All Might, let me kind of get used to it a little while. No, he can't say that, so he's not able to allow that type of kind of easing into the power to happen. I mean, and I think that at least when it comes down to the episode where he uses One for All to destroy the robot, that it really kind of showcases the Superman trope, like, I need to be a hero because this is just what I am. This is how I normally would react. And I don't know. It kind of gives an interesting dynamic that I don't think existed for these types of superhero characters in American comics for when I was the age when I was starting to read comics and stuff like that. It has a connectivity to the character that I wasn't able to find.
Yeah, comic books, at least right now, there's always been a underlying current of anti-heroes and grimdark and stuff like that. Nobody's
Yeah.
just a hero for the sake of being a hero, except, like Superman and stuff like that. So
And One Punch Man, but that
Yeah.
doesn't really count in
then
this
for
context.
not just the sake of, it's fun or whatever, but for the sake of it's a line from Thor Ragnarok. It's like, because that's what heroes do. It's just
Yeah.
doing that because that's what
And
heroes
he
do.
he just does that. He just my legs moved on my own.
Yeah.
It just seemed like you were you're asking for help.
He's-
Like I love that because he's like the one character that out of everybody who has the ideals of like
I think
the
that's the right word,
the
ideals.
prototypical hero. But at the same time, though, because he has the limitations of not being able to use his power and being very rash, people are like, "Oh, we'll give you the pity hero points because you're a hero." But at the same time, he didn't think that through. If that was a real battle, and
Well, that's the weird thing, is that they set him up so much to be like a book smart character in the first couple
Yeah.
episodes, but then like when it comes time to the trial battle, he doesn't have a strategy going in. He doesn't have anything going on. He's just like, "Fuck, where's the robots? I'm losing."
He's been. I think it's one of the. I think that's a really interesting way that they introduced his character into the end of this arc, because he has been a character that's been on the sidelines for so long that he only really can look and observe at this point. And the moment that he's now thrust as an active character, and he can't view himself in the equation.
I think
he only can see the external
I
aspects.
feel like it's the difference of like being the sort of guy who knows all the baseball stats compared
And
to
actually being able to play
being
baseball.
thrown into a baseball game. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
theoretically, you should be able to know, like, oh, this guy throws a curveball 90% of the time, but can you hit it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like you might have all the information, but you don't necessarily have the practical experience. And everybody else in the series up to this point has had the benefit of having their quirks with them since they were born,
Right.
basically, or since they were very young. He literally is getting used to it within the span of like an hour.
Yeah.
And I think that throwing him into the fire at that point allows the audience to really I would say embrace the character more than it would be if he had this power or knew all, or like if All Might was his dad.
Yeah.
Or something like that, and he inherited this power young, or something like that. It provides the fish out of water trope in a way that makes it a lot more easier for us to accept his arc as going toward being the greatest hero ever. Like we feel a genuine sense of tension and apprehension, even though the narration is telling this story from a kind of a future perspective. So like, oh, we know he's going to become one of the greatest heroes, but
Right.
it's a matter about, okay, how exactly does he get
Oh,
there, and in what context is a great hero? Because we already see that he wins the hero points by knocking out the robot, but at the same time, though, he's still damaged himself, so he might become a great hero at the same time that he loses himself in that.
Yeah,
if he
it's about
maintains that.
It's all about the journey, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that is strong within the first arc of the series, is that it's a very, I would say, very typical introduction to the hero's journey. The typical archetypal hero's journey, and it allows to. It's going to allow subversion of a lot of the tropes later on in the series.
Yeah, but to move on to that second thing you wanted,
Yes.
the voice acting.
The dubs, yeah.
Yeah, I not having known the subs, not caring much for the subs, I didn't have any problem with any of the voice acting. Nothing stood particularly out. The translation / adaptation wise, it didn't seem there being anything that was like, nothing seemed too Americanized, I guess I would say. Like nothing.
That's fair.
Nothing seemed like nothing seemed like it was written by 4 kids back in the day, where it was like,
let's bring back 4 kids.
the
Let's bring back
kids
their
of
horrible dubs of everything.
kids of America have no idea what a rice ball is, so we got to make it a burger.
it's going to be a jelly donut.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. Like, nothing seemed... if anything, without having known better, I would have said that, like, the Detroit Smash would have probably been like, wow, why'd the dubbers change it to a U.S. name? That's weird. But because of knowing better...
But no, that's the actual attacks that he has.
So,
and it's really kind of great to hear in the Japanese dub them say, like, Detroit Smash. It's just like, this is so hype.
But yeah, no, I have no problems with the voice acting. All the characters seemed pretty lockstep. If anything, I did, for an earlier video we did, the Monster review, I did hear what All Might sounded like in subs. And if anything, I almost prefer the dub more. It just strikes me as more of the... Maybe it's because I'm looking for the Superman voice, but that just strikes me as... That's fair. More of how I'd imagine him to sound.
I think that All Might... Because, you know, as I said before, like, I've seen both. I think All Might in the English dub... and I forget who he's voiced by, is like, I think that he is really well done. I think that Christopher Sabat, that's who does his voice. I think that he does a really good job. I think that he does an equal job to the voice of, in the Japanese one, which was, I think, Kenta Miyake. Sorry for that pronunciation again. But I think that both of them are kind of on par, especially with the different parts where they're like, he's like doing the full, you know, All Might swell at the same time, where he's just the thin little dude. But I really think that the voice acting for Midoriya in the Japanese dub is just so much more emotional.
Oh, okay.
And so much more, I connected with that voice more.
Okay.
That isn't to say, because the English voice is done by Justin Briner and the child voice is done by Laura Woodhull. I think that both of them did a really good job. I think that I'm with Deku in that. But I love the voices that they have for Deku in the Japanese one. It just made me feel a lot more. It made me want to connect to Midoriya more, personally. And also, I think that because of the subtitled translation of the Japanese dub, it's always a little bit more serious, even though a lot of this stuff is kind of zany. But I feel that some of the original translation versus the dub translation, it kind of loses some of the emotional context that we have, and also the emotional context that Midoriya has with Bakugo when they're really young. Because, like, in the very first episode, it starts off with Midoriya, like, trying to stand up to Bakugo, and the dubbing in both of them are the dubbing in both of them are different emotional pitches, and also the script are very different connotations too. I think it represents Midoriya in very different ways from the get-go. And as a result of that, if you're watching the subs versus the dubs, you're going to get a very different impression of not only Midoriya, but also Midoriya's relationship with Bakugo.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the next arc, if we ever do that, I would definitely switch over to subs and see if that does anything for me. But
yeah, I mean, again, like, some people are just for dubs, some people are for subs. I'm not one of the people who are trying to have the debate that one is better than the other. There's one that I enjoy more. Like, I love the Monster original dubbing, the original Japanese dubbing of Monster, better than the English version, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad one. I do think, the most notorious English dubs of things like, like One Piece and and Hellsing and shit like that. Like those are objectively bad in a lot of points.
Well, a lot of those dubs, from what I understand, also like change the plot. It's not just like voices being wrong; it's translators changing things.
Yeah, and that's how it was with, like, anything that 4Kids pretty much touched back in the day. That's pretty much what they did. They even did that with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series as well, and fucking Pokemon. Oh, actually, no. Who did Pokemon? I don't know. I don't think that was 4Kids. I think that
No, I think 4Kids.
Saban.
I think 4Kids had it for a while.
Didn't do it.
I think
did they
for a while?
Yeah,
I think so.
I don't remember. Four
Yeah,
Kids.
no, definitely, because I remember
The moral here is just 4 Kids is garbage.
I remember their logo at the beginning of the Pokemon the first movie. I remember that.
Yeah, I don't know who's handling their dubbing now. It could
I think
be
it is.
anybody, but
I think it is
matter.
the Pokemon Company. I think they got it back.
Is it good?
Oh, I don't know about that.
It really depends entirely on the companies handling it, but it doesn't help the fact that the English dubbing for the most part is like 20 actors who do every fucking anime.
Oh yeah, but that's a discussion for another time.
Indeed. So the last thing to kind of finish this off, if you had to give this first arc a rating out of 5 stars, what would you give it?
So with 1 star being, or 0 stars, I guess technically being that society is worse off with its existence, and 5 stars being I don't care what the comments say, I'm going to continue watching this tonight. I would probably, I'm gonna officially label this as a 4 going on 4.5. I don't want to come out. I don't want to come out the gate and say 5 because I am. If the comments, if they're saying, "Hey, don't bother watching the rest" for whatever reason, I'll listen. I'm not immediately going to jump into it, but I am really looking forward to the rest of the show, and I'm hoping the comments will say, "Hey, yeah, do a little bit more of My Hero."
Well, we definitely will hope that that's the case because I think that you're in for a treat. But then again, to be fair, I'm coming out of my entire biases with My Hero Acca, and I love this series. I've said it multiple times in multiple videos, and I think that I still haven't seen like a lot of the most recent episodes right now, the recording of this. So I have a long way to go to catch up. But at the same time, I don't think that the series is going to disappoint me. I haven't been reading any of the news just to make sure I avoid spoilers, which has been fucking tough.
All the news is just how the series is going to disappoint you.
Yeah. It's the year of disappointment. It's Game of Thrones. It's everything else. Everyone's just going to be bitching and moaning about everything.
Luckily, Walking Dead got in there like 5 years ago, but whatever.
Yeah, thankfully. All right, so thanks everyone for listening. What do you think of the first chapter of My Hero Acca? If you want us to continue on with the next arc, let us know in the comments, along with any other anime David should watch. Twitter, Patreon, and all those goodies in the description. And we will catch you next time when we'll be discussing my favorite anime feature film, Satoshi Kon's Millennium Actress.
That sounds like a wonderful movie full of happy times and cheerful moments.
We're going to cry a lot.
Made possible by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.